Sigma Theory is a 2D, turn-based strategy game, which came out in 2019. You play as the head of a scientific governmental division. Your job is to manage an R&D race to a finish line. Other countries' similar divisions are your competition. The goal is to develop highly advanced technologies before any other countries can. Meanwhile, you're all trying to reach the finish line, which is the end of the tech tree, the story. You start off on day one of your new job. You've been made the boss of the Sigma division, but you're far from independent. You have 4 special agents, 2 scientists, a combat drone, and a surveillance drone. Your own bosses are neutral towards you, and the world's only halfway towards doomsday. Your spouse congratulates you on your new job. However, your spouse is an agent for another country. You're also expected to mismanage things for your spouse's benefit, but you're assured this corruption will be mutual. You can choose how to respond to this and other future requests through dialogue options. Meanwhile, you're starting off in a precarious situation. Having 2 scientists isn't enough to complete your task. Your new boss tells you as much too. More scientists need to be acquired, but you need to get them away from other countries without causing too much noise. Otherwise, your own government is going to get angry at you and you'll lose your job. International incidents are frowned upon. In addition to needing to juggle your government's happiness, there's also the happiness of other countries to consider, your spouse's happiness, and how to handle any discovered technologies. Meanwhile, there's also a secret which comes up early in the story mode of the game. It has a series of quests tied to it. If you don't pursue this quest line quickly, then the opportunity to learn something important and to fully experience the story mode content permanently vanishes from your current playthrough. If you manage to succeed at last, then you'll find out that your choices along the way mattered. This game has multiple endings. I fully played through the game to the end 3 times, since it's short, and twice had different outcomes. I also encountered earlier game over screens during a few other playthroughs. Which choices mattered for successful endings and why isn't clear though. It's also not clear how many endings there are. I searched online but couldn't find solid info. I tried testing things out, such as having a run where nobody died during exfiltrations and the combat drone was never used in conflicts. But being super peaceful wasn't enough to get a different, unique ending on that 3rd run. Characters. It seems like agents should have personality. Additional ones are unlocked for future playthroughs during gameplay, and they have detailed backstories and personalities. Yet those rarely matter, which was bothersome. After all, it seemed like they should matter in context, especially given that reading their backgrounds is required to recruit them. You have to pass a 1-question quiz, yet afterward, they're pretty much cardboard cutouts that simply move around a board. The spouse mechanic felt similarly hollow, and so did the boss's reactions to various events. During the story mode, there is a plotline to follow, but despite its interest, it still felt like an awkward visual novel scene when it played out. This was because of how hollow all of the characterization had been until that point. It would have been nice to see a little bit more depth, especially since stories about secretive organizations with spies are better with some personality. Such stories are all about intrigue, after all, so its lack of characterization felt obvious in context because it seemed to be a clearly missed opportunity. That's why I'm mentioning it. The gameplay. In story mode, you're from the US. In classic mode, you're from wherever you want. Each country offers a different bonus. In either mode, you also pick a spouse from another country. You also pick 4 special agents from a list. Agents come with different skills. Some have high strength, some are highly intellectual, and others are balanced. Some are good at seduction, some are hackers, and some have other traits that aid them during exfiltration missions, and so on. The team that you assemble is up to you, but only 1 agent can be of the elite type. In-game, various tasks are either strength-based or intelligence-based, and so having members with different pros and cons is useful. During the game, certain events can also enhance your agents. Your agents can also be lost along the way, either permanently or temporarily. If permanently removed, then you'll only get a replacement if your bosses like you. Otherwise, they'll think you're too incompetent to deserve another agent, but also not so incompetent that they'll fire you, which is a little weird considering you're supposed to be handling whether or not doomsday happens. Anyway, once the game starts, there are several things to manage: scientists, agents, diplomacy, drones, a marital happiness meter, and making sure 2 other, more important meters don't go boom. There are 5 fields of study with their own linear tech trees. When the final stage of the tech tree is reached, then 5 slots, 1 for each field, open up in a circle. Almost everything on this screen is automatic. However, scientists don't always pop back into place if a random event has them stop working. Scientists also have to be manually placed into the final stage, which was an unpleasant surprise that took me a round or two to notice, since they usually do auto-slot. I've been wondering why I was stuck at 0%. To acquire more scientists, having an agent exfiltrate somebody is the easiest method. Requesting one scientist at a time is possible, but it's too slow of a method to win. A scientist will come willingly if they're persuaded by an agent, but if they're unwilling to flee, they would be kidnapped prisoners if taken, and work less efficiently. These scientists have to be found before any of that can happen, though. Finding them is done through agents either actively searching for them locally, or by using an agent's hacking skill, either remotely or locally, to search. Agents can do many other things too. Hack into systems to steal research, find dirt on politicians for leverage during diplomatic meetings with them, counter or capture enemy spies, and much more. But having them travel around to do various tasks does take time. Scheduling a meeting with other countries' leaders allows for diplomacy. Before a meeting occurs, you can get dirt on them, install ransomware, hold their spies hostage, or move drones into their country for political leverage during the meeting. Your 2 drones can also be sent into international conflicts as allied support, which will further boost another country's friendliness towards you. There's also an alarm level and a relationship level for each country still in play. If the alarm level's high, then it's difficult for your agents to operate in that country until you lower it, because the local security forces are very active. If the relationship level with a country's poor, then it's harder to engage in diplomacy with them. The higher the relationship value, the higher the initial negotiation bar is skewed in your favor. And while drones can be used for political gain, they're most useful in exfiltration missions. The surveillance drone will act as a GPS system to help agents avoid combat, and the combat drone can take out local forces if you want, though generally stealth is best. Not killing people with loud explosions does cause fewer international incidents. Overall, I didn't really make much use of the combat drone. During the game, other than a little dialogue and a handful of requests, there's not much to having a spouse. You can never contact the character yourself. There's an affection meter, but that's about it. However, the spouse's well-being likely does affect the ending somehow, since it does appear on the final scoreboard. While all of that is going on, 2 meters are the most important things to handle during the entire game. If either of these meters gets too low, then it's a premature game over. The Doomsday meter is based on a real thing, the Doomsday Clock. This clock can shoot up or down either a lot or a little from both technological discoveries and the various choices that you make during the game. However, it doesn't do much during play. It's simply a game over if it reaches boom o'clock. Your boss's happiness meter is similar. However, this meter will negatively affect you as you play if it gets too low. Basically, if your boss gets angry, then they start taking away things. Losing resources, of course, makes it harder to recover from a bad luck spiral. I played the game on both its story mode and its classic mode. The story mode added some depth in the form of a quest line, which did make the game more interesting to play. However, it also meant that country choice during creation was restricted, which wasn't really a big deal. The bonuses aren't major. Otherwise, it seemed to be the same as classic mode. I didn't bother with custom mode, but you can play around with different settings there if you want to. Also, it's worth noting that modes don't have save slots. Whichever one you play, there's a single save, which auto-saves as the game is played. So only one person can have a run going at a time. And if a player runs into bad luck and gets an early game over, then the save is auto-wiped. Time and cost. It can be beaten in about 2 hours. That's why I bothered playing it through several times and exploring different options. If someone wants to go completionist with it, such as unlocking every possible agent, then it could take significantly more time. I got it for free in a GOG giveaway a while back, but it's normally $18 and only $3.59 on sale. For the sale price, I recommend it because it's an entertaining few hours, has some replayability value, and that's a pretty cheap price. But I think that $18 is too high market value-wise. The look and the sound. It looks like what I'd expect from a decent game in its genre. It had nothing bad, but nothing fancy. Its sound seemed the same to me, really. No music or sound effects stood out to me, and there's no voiced narration. Final thoughts. I think it's got its flaws, in addition to what I mentioned, mainly that it's a little too random and obtuse, but it's okay. Since I didn't really cover why I think it's random and obtuse, I'll quickly give some examples. On randomness, one event can knock the Doomsday meter to an unreasonable degree. On a first playthrough, getting hit with that is an unpleasant, likely game-ending surprise if it happens. In context, this also doesn't make sense, it getting knocked so much. The event in question that does it should take a few years to actually reach doomsday level proportions. So getting a game over here feels like a weak "you lose" pop-up more than it does something sensible. As for being obtuse, initially it was difficult to know if an agent's stats would see them through an exfiltration mission or not. Robber was supposed to be excellent at getting in and out of places quickly based on her bio and skills. So I thought that's what she'd be good at. I thought maybe she'd be even one of the best characters at it. However, when I tried to use her, I found that she was far worse than many other agents. In the end, what really seemed to matter were the core intelligence and strength stats, just the hard numbers. Everything else seemed minor in comparison and didn't really help much. Yet, despite its problems, I found the game's multiple interesting endings to be partially redeeming. The game ended in neat ways which I didn't expect and which I won't spoil here. To me, it having creative, multiple endings helped to make up for its sometimes lackluster gameplay and story. But that said, I went in with no expectations. I'm concerned I might be inadvertently hyping them here, and I don't want to cause an expectation overshot. So I'll just say that these endings weren't the most amazing endings ever, but they were a pleasant, unique surprise to see. And for that reason, I rounded up from the decimal instead of down in my final rating. I don't like the game a lot, but I like it a little. I think it's unique and decent enough indie.